Hi, welcome to the PRsonal podcast. I'm your host, Charlotte Nichols from Harvey and Hugo. I'm really excited to be joined today by Ashleigh Wright. Ashleigh is Managing Director at Westray Recruitment Group. Ashleigh, when was the first time you witnessed domestic abuse?
So I was young. I must have been maybe 3 or 4 years old because my dad was quite abusive to my mum. And I remember being young and not always seeing things, but hearing a lot of things that was going on. And it wasn't until I got older that I realised actually what was going on fully. But there was a couple of times that I did see things that had happened sort of during the night when I was in bed, and I would sort of creep downstairs to see what was going on. And I remember that being quite scary because you're a child and you're hearing shouting and banging and screaming, and you think, oh my God, what's going on? And at 3, 4 years old, to think that was quite tough.
Oh, I bet it was horrific. Was it physical abuse?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And still to this day, my mum, bless her, has scars on her body from things that had happened to her.
Oh my goodness, bless her. And so how did it affect your childhood?
Do you know what? Looking back, I don't think it really affected it that much because, as I said before, I didn't really fully understand everything that was going on. So for me, it was kind of normal, if that makes sense.
I guess.
It wasn't really until I got older and had conversations with my mum about things that had went on that I was then able to look back and think, oh shit, that's really quite bad. So it probably affected me more as I got older as opposed to it affecting me as a child because I didn't know any different.
Mm-hmm. I understand. And so did your mum eventually leave your dad?
Yes. So they separated when my brother and I were sort of, I think we were about 5 or 6 years old. And that was hard because I think anyone who's living in that scenario, when they've got young kids, it's really difficult. And I know she didn't want to take us away from my dad, but at the same time she had to do what was best for her. And I've had conversations with her about it and I've said it was 100% the right thing for her to do, because you just don't know how things are going to potentially escalate either.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Did you ever experience any abuse?
Not at home, not when I was a child, and not from my dad. I mean, I did. There was one time when, so I was 9 because my mum had just given birth to my sister a few days prior, and there was a lot of arguments going on between my mum and my dad about him wanting to see my brother and I, and it was really tough. And anyway, we were at home, and it was a couple of days later after my mum had given birth, and my dad turned up to the house, and he was drunk, and he sort of forced his way in, and I saw him in that moment. He came into the house, and my mum was with a new partner at the time, and he attacked my mum and my partner in front of my brother and I, and then he left the house and went and got my granddad, like his dad, and he came back into the house, and then they both just started again. So I remember my brother was really upset and crying, and he was trying to console my sister because she was screaming at this point with all the commotion going on. And I'm 9 years old, and I'm ringing the police for the very first time, thinking, I've never had to ring the police before. I didn't even know what to say. I was just crying. So I didn't experience any abuse myself directly from my dad, but I think for me that was the most awful thing that I saw him do in front of my brother and I.
It's abuse in itself almost, isn't it, to witness?
Yeah,
oh my God.
Absolutely.
So you went and got his father, your grandfather, to go and join in and beat your mum and her partner?
So he had been obviously out on the drink, and my granddad had dropped him off at the house, and he was waiting in the car, and then he just went and got him, and then the pair of them came in, and I remember my dad being on top of my mum and my granddad being on top of my mum's partner, and my brother and I just witnessing all of it, and it was absolutely horrendous. And I think that'll stay with me forever, really, because I don't think anyone should have to witness anything like that. But never mind a child who, I still loved my dad. I still wanted a relationship with him. And at the time when I wasn't seeing him, which was how this whole thing ended up getting to the point it did, was because my dad wasn't being a great dad, and my mum was trying to protect my brother and I. But she never told Alex and I that, because she was still wanting to protect our feelings. And she would, even at this day, she doesn't really call my dad after everything that she's went through, because she doesn't want my brother or I to feel the way we do based on how she feels about him. She wants us to make our own decisions. But that was a very traumatic experience.
I feel sick just hearing that story. I couldn't imagine how you'd feel knowing that that's your parents and grandparents.
Yeah.
Horrendous. And how do you even move forward from seeing that sort of incident as a family?
I really don't know, to be honest. I mean, I remember the police came, and that was hard, because I'd never been interviewed by the police before. And we did speak about it afterwards. I mean, my memories of it are all a little bit fuzzy. I remember the event happening as if it was just like yesterday, but the aftermath of it is all still a bit fuzzy in my head, because I don't really remember what had happened after that. But I do remember not seeing my dad for a while because I was scared of him and thinking, what's gone on? But my dad was a very manipulative man, and his new partner was as well. And I remember them trying to blame my mum for what had happened when we did see him quite a while after, and saying, your mum wouldn't let me see you. She was doing X, Y, and Z, and I had no other choice. And yes, I'd had a drink, but it was because I was so upset over not seeing you. And he made a really good case for why he behaved the way that he did. But again, I was young at the time, so I was impressionable.
Of course.
And my brother was as well. So if someone said that to me now as an adult, I'd think, what a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
Don't be giving me that. But as a child, you want to believe what your parents are telling you.
Yeah.
And looking back, I think he was probably trying to turn us against my mum at that time. But again, I didn't realise that until I got older, when you're an adult and you can think about these things. But as a child, you just know. You don't know. You don't.
Yeah, and you love them, so you believe them.
Absolutely.
Oh, did he manage to turn you against your mum for a little bit?
No, I think I'm wise enough to know, even at a young age, that my mum was the one who had done everything for us. And there was times when my brother and I had been meant to be seeing my dad, and he just wouldn't turn up to pick us up. So he could have said what he wanted, but I think I knew deep down what he was saying wasn't true, but I wasn't confident enough at that age to challenge him on it.
I'm not surprised. Even if you were confident, you'd have had hesitation seeing what he could do.
Yeah.
Are you still in touch with him?
No. I haven't spoken to him in over 15 years now. I did try as I got older, because I think I see my friends with mums and dads and have a real family unit, and I haven't had that, and that's not anyone's fault. That was just circumstance. But I did want to have a relationship with him. But as I got older, sort of late teens, I had a lot of anger towards him. So every time I spoke to him, I ended up just shouting at him for one reason or another. And to be honest, I wasn't very nice to him. But rather than him try and understand why I was feeling the way that I was, he just backed off completely. And he said to my brother, I don't want to have a relationship with Ash because all she does is shout at me.
Okay.
And I think, well, that just goes to show the type of person that he is. If he wanted to just end things there rather than actually try and to discuss with me why I was feeling the way I was. And he would have known why I was feeling the way he was. He just wouldn't want to have been accountable for his actions.
Yeah, and sometimes there's no reasoning with that type of person anyway. And how about your mum? Do you have a strong relationship with your mum today?
Yeah, my mum's amazing. She's the best. She's absolutely incredible. And the strength that she's got, I think is just phenomenal, because for her to have had to have went through the situation she did with my dad while having 2 young kids and trying to do the best that she could for herself, but for us as well, I can imagine being really hard. And her and I talk about it, about things now. I mean, we were just having a conversation the other day, and we kind of laugh about it now. I think it's kind of, you either laugh or you cry. But we have a really strong relationship and a really strong bond. And I understand that everything she ever did was for my brother and I, and to make sure that we were safe and that we were happy. And yes, I didn't understand things when I was younger, but now I really do. And I would hate for anyone to have to go through what she did.
I mean, she sounds incredible.
Yeah.
I think I may have met her very briefly at a business event quite a few years ago, because she set up a business as well, going through all this.
Yeah, so when all of this was going on, so when she set up her business, she was pregnant with me, and then she had my brother sort of a year and a half later. So she had a young family whilst being in an abusive relationship and running our business as well. And honestly, the strength that she's got to have been able to manage all of that and keep going, I'm just in awe of her.
Me too. Massive respect to her. So then you get older, you enter relationships, and unfortunately you at some point realised you were in an abusive relationship yourself. Kind of, what was the point you realised?
So I've actually been in 2 abusive relationships. And ironically, they both had the same name. So I think it was hard, because at the time, the first one, well, both of them, I was sort of in my early 20s, and they were only probably about a year, 2 years apart from one another. And at the beginning, everything was great.
Always is, isn't it?
Always is. Take you to nice places, take you on holiday, fancy restaurants, fancy hotels. But then after a while, I kind of realised that the cracks were starting to show. So, for example, asking where I was going, who I was going out with, checking my phone, telling me what I could and couldn't wear, telling me that I couldn't wear makeup. And one of them, which was particularly bad. So one of them was more sort of mental abuse, if I'm honest with you. It did get physical a couple of times, but nothing major, really. I mean, like pushed and shoved a little bit. But the second one, which was really quite bad, I couldn't do anything, like anything at all. And I think, looking back, I was probably quite lucky that I wasn't actually living with him, but I was at his house a lot. But it was just the constant questions about everything. So, for example, if I was sat on the sofa with him on an evening, I would have to put my phone on airplane mode so that it didn't go off, because of any time my phone went off, he would be looking at it and checking it. He would be questioning me about my job. He hated my job, because I work in recruitment, in industrial recruitment. Majority of people I'm dealing with are men. Yeah. He hated that. And then it just kind of got to the point where it started getting all of that sort of control, and the mental abuse and the coercive control got really bad. It did then turn physical. And looking back, I probably should have realised, with all of the jealousy and the control, that it was maybe going to get at that point. But I was in my early 20s, I was in love, and you ignore all of the red flags. I think if that was to happen to me now, at 35, I would be so much more aware. But I was sort of 24 at the time, and you're not mature enough, really. Well, I certainly wasn't.
I wasn't, no.
I certainly wasn't mature enough to understand actually just how bad it was. And I don't know, don't know if maybe I just thought that was normal. That's what relationships were. I don't know, but it went from a lot of coercive control, questions, locking me in the house so I couldn't go out, to it then turning physical.
My goodness. And when you say you thought it was normal, do you think that's because of your childhood?
Potentially, I think, and I've had that conversation again with my mum and said, and said that to her. And I didn't want her to feel bad when I said that, but she understood, because I'd seen my dad treat my mum in the way that he did. And then I saw my dad just be a dick as I got older and just not be what you expect a man to be. So I think, and then I didn't have a male role model, really. I mean, I had my granddad, who was amazing, my mum's dad, who was absolutely fantastic. But I didn't have a proper male role model teaching his daughter, this is how you should be treated, this is what you should accept, this is what you shouldn't accept, this is how you should be valued as a person. So I think I just tried to figure it out myself. And obviously it didn't go to plan.
And you made an interesting point there about the different levels of abuse or different degrees of abuse, because sometimes people instantly think that it's physical, but you actually work for a domestic abuse charity and you see all sorts. Can you tell us a little bit more about different types?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. A lot of people think that abuse has to be physical, but there's a lot of people in relationships who are in abusive relationships, but it's all to do with control. So telling them where they can and can't go, who they can and can't speak to, managing their money, alienating them from their friends and their family, all of that is abuse. But people won't think they're living in an abusive relationship because they're not being physically hurt. And I think for me, that's the most upsetting thing. And I remember being in that moment thinking, this isn't like what they're doing. But not for one moment did I think that I was being abused because I wasn't being hurt. It wasn't until I was being physically hurt that it then crossed my mind, actually, this is abuse. But it can literally be anything where they're telling you what you can and can't do. And don't get me wrong, every relationship has a compromise. You have to compromise. So,
you can't do that. Abuse. You wouldn't let me go out shopping again.
Every relationship that you have to compromise. But I'm talking about, as I said, my own experience was my phone was being checked all of the time. I was being told what I couldn't wear. I was even being told at one point that I couldn't go to work. And that was really tough for me because I was working with my mum, right? She was my boss. And for me to have to make up excuses for why I couldn't go to work was really hard, because generally I had to be on my deathbed if I wasn't able to go to work. It's kind of like when kids are trying to get the day off school, you've got to be dying. That was me. But I was so scared to go against what he was telling me I couldn't do, because I was so scared of the consequences. And it did affect my work, and it did affect my relationship with my mum, because she knew I was lying about things because I wasn't honest with her at all, because I didn't want her to worry. But I suppose I was embarrassed and ashamed as well. So he would tell me I couldn't go to work, I couldn't speak to people, I wasn't allowed to go out. So abuse can look anything like that, and of course physical abuse as well.
And you mentioned that word coercive control. Can you describe that a little bit more so people can understand it?
So I think for me it's about as I said, kind of being told who you can and can't speak to, making you feel bad for who you're speaking to, making you feel guilty, trying to make you feel like shit just for wanting to live your life a little bit. With my ex, if I was going out and he wasn't, he would put things on me like, well, what am I going to do without you? And I haven't got any plans, and you're out having a good time, and I'm going to be here and I'm going to be really sad and missing you. So making me feel like you couldn't live without me. And that's
really manipulative, almost discreet control, rather than just saying you can't go out, making you feel like you can't.
Absolutely.
Acting against what you'd naturally want to do.
And then telling me that my friends weren't good for me for no reason at all. He didn't really know my friends, but just saying that they weren't good for me and that they didn't care about me and that I could do better, and no one would treat me how he would treat me. No one loves me how he loved me. And it gets into your head, because you then do start second guessing yourself and thinking, is he right? And then say you've had an argument with your friend, which we all do. You then overthink those situations and think, actually, is that person being really nasty and manipulative to me? Or is it just we've had a disagreement, which is what happens in friendships and relationships?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for me, I was just constantly overthinking absolutely everything to the point where he got what he wanted and I didn't see my friends. I didn't have any friends.
It was just easier that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And did you question your own sanity?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I was thinking about this in the car on the way down, and I genuinely believe that behind every crazy person, there's someone else that makes them that way. And
Good point.
I was feeling crazy, but then feeling like, is it me or is it him? Because he was so good at making me believe that I was the one that was in the wrong. And he was quite a bit older than me. I was sort of early 20s and he was 40. And he had a successful business and he was very charming and he was very nice. So then you think, well, why would a 40-year-old successful businessman be saying all of this stuff to me if it's not true? Mm-hmm. He's so much more wise than me and he knows what he's talking about. And I was young, I was in my 20s. He must see something in me that I don't see.
Yeah.
But I did question my sanity all of the time. And even still to this day, I do look back and sometimes think, was that me or was that him? And I do tell myself now that it was him, but it did take a long time for me to get into that way of thinking because he just dragged me down so much and made me lose all of my confidence and just battered me. I don't mean physically, but he did do that as well, but emotionally just drained and battered me down so much where you don't know whether you're coming or going half the time. But I didn't.
Yeah, almost that you lose all faith in yourself and your worth and your value. Mm-hmm. Horrendous. And, you know, both physical and non-physical forms of abuse, not like, absolutely inexcusable, but which has left lasting damage on you?
Probably more so the mental abuse. I mean, the physical stuff was bad, but I suppose you can heal from that. But it was the mental stuff that was really bad because he was always with another woman as well at the same time, but he made out as if I was making things up in my head, if you like, that this woman didn't exist. And I knew she did. He told me she was an ex, spun the whole thing about she's crazy, she's psychotic, she won't leave me alone, etc., etc. And I knew throughout our relationship that she was still on the scene. And whenever I would challenge him about it, he would tell me that I was crazy. And it was like, that for me was so hard because you know in yourself, and I feel like as a woman, you've got that gut instinct and you know when something isn't right.
Absolutely.
But when they're constantly telling you that you're making things up and you're imagining things and you're crazy and none of it is true, it is so difficult to get your head around. And it did make me think, actually, am I just making all of this up? Until, and this was so embarrassing, we were at the Metro Centre and we were doing some Christmas shopping and we were sat at the champagne bar and the other woman turned up. And she was going crazy. She was, because he was doing the same to her, what he was doing to me. So she came up and she was screaming and it was so embarrassing. And she was getting her phone out and she was showing me text messages. She said, he is sat here with you, sending me messages, telling me he loves me. And then she sort of showed me that there's a bunch of flowers he'd bought her a couple of days prior. On the same day, he had flowers delivered to me at work as well.
2 for 1.
Yeah. And it was just absolute, like, I can't even describe how I felt because people were looking. She was going absolutely mental. And I don't blame her for going mental, to be honest, because I think had that been me, I probably would have lost my shit as well. And she must have been feeling the exact same way that I did, but I think she had been going through it for longer than I had, and she just lost it. And I felt really bad for her. I wanted to give her a cuddle, but obviously I didn't. I just walked away. And he followed me through the Metro Centre, and I was crying. And my best friend happened to ring me at the time. And my best friend is a guy, and he rang me and he heard that I was crying, and he was like, "What happened? What's wrong?" And I was explaining to him. And then the next thing I know, I get smacked across the face from behind because he had followed me, saw me on the phone, and then he just came up behind me and he smacked me across the face. My phone dropped to the floor, and he picks up my phone and he's going, "Who the bloody hell is this?" Shouting at this person down the phone. And when he heard that it was a guy, he started going absolutely crackers. And I'm stood there crying, but thinking, are you joking me? I've just had another woman approach us at the bar telling me that you're in a relationship with her, showing me text messages, and you've got the audacity to come and do this to me and shout at someone on the phone who was just a friend. And that for me, I just thought, what on earth is going on here? But I think what upset me more about that situation was that people saw what had happened, and not one person came over to see if I was okay.
Wow.
Or tell him to get away or try and help me or anything.
This is in the Metro Centre?
Yeah, this was in the Metro Centre.
When was this?
This was, I must have been probably about 10, 11 years ago.
Right.
And it was Christmas time as well, because we'd been doing Christmas shopping. So it was busy.
So everyone saw.
Like a lot of people saw. Yeah, because people were pointing. Like they were doing that typical thing, as you can imagine, kind of like pointing and sniggering to one another. Which I get, because I think that is people's natural reaction to do something like that if they see a big commotion like that. But I think I was more hurt about the fact not one person came to see if I was okay.
He hit you across the face in public.
Yeah, in public, yeah. And I would like to think that even though that was sort of 10, 11, 12 years ago, which isn't a horrendously long time ago.
No, I'd have thought things would have changed back then.
Yeah.
For people to come and approach you and ask you a simple question, are you okay?
Yeah, do you need help? Do you want me to call the police? Do you want me to do anything? But not one person did. But I would like to think that now we're a bit of the way on now. I would like to think that if that was to happen, someone would come over and would help. But I did feel let down by the entirety of the Metro Centre at that time because I was young and I was sobbing and crying, and he ended up following me to my car in the end. And I ended up, after all of that had happened, he got in my car, refused to get out. So I ended up having to leave with him because I was scared about what would happen if I didn't. And it was horrendous.
Oh, goodness. So did you end things after that?
No. I mean, you would listening to it, you would probably think that was the wake-up call that I needed. But
it's easier said than done though, isn't it?
That was just the start of it.
Personal isn't just about business. It's about the human stories behind them. We address all aspects of health, from cancer, gastric bands and meningitis to mental health and the menopause. Nothing is off limits on this show. But as these stories often highlight, you can't take your health for granted. I know I don't, and that's why I trust WPA to protect my health. WPA isn't like any other health insurer. It's not for profit and offers award-winning, tailored health insurance solutions to individuals, families, and businesses of all sizes. Among UK health insurers, it consistently tops consumer surveys and Trustpilot ratings, while its members can manage their membership from pre-authorising claims to accessing remote GP services, all on the WPA Health app. Crucially, they help ensure the access to the very best treatment at a time and place that is convenient to you. I speak with Martin Nichols, one of the 90-plus dedicated WPA healthcare partners across Britain, who provides advice and ongoing support during your journey with WPA. Contact Martin anytime on 07870 513 653 to discuss your requirements. Martin Nichols, appointed representative of WPA Healthcare Practice plc, authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. The healthcare practice is a wholly owned subsidiary of Western Provident Association Limited, WPA.
The thing is, he'd been abusive towards me before, multiple times, and then he'd done that. But I always wanted to believe that he would change, and he never did. But I was really scared of him as well, because every time he'd had a drink, he would threaten to kill me. And he knew, because I was living with my mum at the time, so he knew where I lived, obviously. And he would tell me that if I was to leave him or if I was to do anything that he didn't want me to do, that he would chop me up into little pieces and basically throw me in the bin or whatever. And then he would go to my mum's house and he would set the house on fire with everyone in. And looking back now, like, you think for someone to say that to you is just absolutely wild. But at that time, I, hand on heart, 100% believed that he would do that, because I could see that the level of abuse that he was inflicting on me was escalating. So it had gone from the control and tell me what I could and couldn't do, to then just pushing me around a little bit, to then punching me, to strangling me. Then it turned into sexual abuse from there as well. So everything was just escalating and escalating and escalating. So when he was telling me that he was going to kill me, I absolutely believed that he would have done. Absolutely believed he would have done. Because he spiked me one time as well.
Spiked your drink?
Yeah, when I was driving. So I was going to Manchester for a training course and I was leaving early in the morning, and he gave me a can of pop and I didn't realise that he'd put a Valium in my drink. So I'm driving down the motorway to go to Manchester, and I could feel myself getting really tired and just not feeling right at all. So I called him and I just said, I'm starting to feel like really tired and I don't know where this has come from. And he just started laughing down the phone and he said, so you've been drinking your drink then? And I said, what the hell are you talking about? And he said, I just decided to put a Valium in your drink. He said, so that'll be what's making you tired. And at that point, I thought that could have killed me in itself, because if I'd fallen asleep at the wheel, I could have killed someone else or killed me. Yeah, exactly. But he just thought it was absolutely hilarious. So the fact that he did that, which could have caused a serious accident, then when he was telling me he was actually going to kill me, I thought, well, he could have done.
I'd have believed him. That's almost attempted murder, putting sleeping tablets in your drink before you... or sedation in your drink before you're about to have a long journey. It's horrific. So surely then you...
No.
What did it take, Ashleigh?
So he would make me have sex with him whenever he wanted to. And
it's essentially rape.
Yeah. And I hate that word because it was rape, but it was never really violent. Do you know what I mean? So when I hear that word rape, I always assume it's something that's really violent and really horrific. Do you know what I mean? And that didn't happen to me. It nearly got to the point where it did once, where he started to strangle me when I was telling him to get off me. And then as soon as I just said, right, okay, just do it, he then stopped. So it could have got to that point, but I think I was wise enough at that time to think, don't fight back.
Yes.
So it was so that was happening all of the time. And so I was on the pill at the time, and he would hide my pill from me. And looking back now, he was trying to get me pregnant.
And trap you further.
Yeah. And it happened. And I remember when I did the pregnancy test, I can't even describe how I was feeling. It was more shock, horror, but the anxiety that I felt as well, like it was not a happy feeling at all. It was not a happy feeling. So I told him about it, and the first thing he said to me was, "Whose is it?" Because throughout all of this as well, he was always accusing me of cheating on him, but that was obviously because he was cheating on me. But I don't know why, at what point he thought I was able to cheat on him, because he knew where I was at all times, 7 days a week. He always knew where I was. So it could never have been anyone else's. So anyway, when I found out and I told him and he said that to me, I just thought, right. And he was so excited because he didn't have kids and he'd always wanted them. And I think actually this other woman that he was with, she was a bit older and she wasn't of childbearing age, shall we say.
Okay.
So I think he was in that relationship with her, but she was never going to be able to really give him what he wanted, which was a child, which I think he kind of latched onto me so much because I was in my early 20s. So anyway, when it happened, he was so excited and I was just not excited because I thought, I cannot begin to imagine being tied to him for the rest of my life. But again, I was so scared about what to do because I thought, if I go and terminate this pregnancy, what am I going to say to him about it? Can I tell him? Can I not? But then if I keep it, I'm tied to him forever and I will literally probably be like a slave. And it was just horrendous. But then, I say unfortunately, I ended up miscarrying. And when that happened, like the feeling, it was such a weird feeling because 50% of me was absolutely heartbroken and devastated, but the other 50% of me was absolutely elated. And I feel awful saying that because I know there's a lot of women who want children and can't have them or have miscarriages, and it really affects them, and my heart really does go out to them. But for me, the happiness came from knowing that the decision was taken out of my hands and that I wasn't going to be tied to him forever, because I just could not imagine what my life would have been like had that happened. And I think the reason I was so devastated was, and I mean, I don't want kids now, I've made that decision, but at the time I didn't know if I wanted kids. And I think if you miscarry, you then instantly think, God, what does this mean for me later in life when I want kids? Does this mean I'm not going to be able to have them? So all of those thoughts were going through my head, but it really was a blessing in disguise. And then it was at that moment, because when I'd miscarried, I tried to ring him to let him know, and he had my number blocked. And I knew he had my number blocked because if you block a number, it rings once and then goes straight to voicemail, and it kept happening. And it took me a while to realise what he'd done. So I had another phone, I had a work phone. So I tried calling his number from my work phone, which was a number he didn't have saved, and the call went through straight away. So instantly then I knew that he had my number blocked, but he had told me he was working away. And there was just something in the back of my mind where I thought, I know he's not telling me the truth. So I drove to his house and I saw this other woman in the house with him. And it was at that moment I thought, Ashleigh, what the hell are you doing here? He's putting you through all of this trauma and abuse and upset and grief. And you've just went through this. And to be honest with you, it's strange because he was the first person I wanted to speak to when that had happened. And again, looking back, I don't know why that was. Like, I didn't want to speak to any of my friends or my family. It was him I wanted to speak to.
Because you'd have been conditioned.
Yeah.
You know?
So it was after that moment I thought, nah, I'm not putting up with this. And then I didn't hear from him for a few days, and then he called me and was like, Ash, babe, I'm so sorry I've not been in touch. I've been working away and my phone broke. I've only just got one sorted. And I just absolutely lost it. I was like, I won't repeat what I said to him. It wasn't nice, but I just said, like, I am not continuing this with you. You're a liar, you're a cheat, you're an abuser. Like, I am not putting up with this. And that was kind of it, to be honest. And I was scared afterwards because of all of these threats he'd made to me previously about how he was going to come and kill me. But in my head, I thought, if he is with this woman, that is where his focus is going to be. And that kind of made me feel a bit safer, thinking, well, if he's back with her now, which I'm sure, he always was with her anyway, but I thought, if he's with her, then his focus can be on her and not on me. So that was the end of it in terms of the relationship. But afterwards, kind of, he would follow me. So I was going to client meetings and he would just be there in the car park.
Scary.
It was really scary. And I would say to him, what are you doing here? And he said, oh, I just really wanted to see you. I'm like, well, first of all, I'm at work and I'm going into a meeting and my head was all over the place going into client meetings after you've just after your ex, who was this awful person, has just turned up telling you he still loves you and wants to be with you and all of that. So that happened a few times. And then, to be honest, Charlotte, it kind of then all just fizzled out. And I don't know why. I think he must have still been with this woman and his focus was on her and he didn't feel like he had to come back to me or harass me. But I was really pleased that it kind of just fizzled.
I bet.
At that point, yeah.
And was this your second bad relationship? Okay, so you were done.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. It hasn't happened since.
And like, how did you manage to keep the abuse hidden from your close friends and family, or did you not? Did they know about it?
No, they didn't know. Probably one of my best but worst qualities is how loyal I am as a person. So even though he was doing all of these horrendous things, I didn't want anyone to know because, well, A, I was embarrassed and I was ashamed by it. But I didn't want anyone to think badly of him because I knew, because it had been going on for ages, I knew that the relationship wasn't going to end right then and there. So if I'd told my best friend or my mum or my sister or anyone, they would have said, well, you need to leave him now. But I knew at that point, it sounds daft, that I hadn't reached breaking point yet. And you would think that I would have done with everything that had happened. But I wasn't at breaking point. So I didn't tell anyone. And I think people asked me if I was okay because I'd really gone into myself. I wasn't speaking to people much. I wasn't seeing people. But I just lied and just said I was fine or made up excuses or whatever. But I didn't tell anyone about really what had happened. To be honest, when they listen to this will probably be the first time a lot of people actually realise just how bad it was because, as I said, I'm a very loyal and protective person, which is a good quality, but in this situation, probably one of the worst qualities to have.
And in your mum, especially having gone through it herself, she had no idea either.
I think she did know.
Okay.
I don't think she ever knew to the extent, but we've had conversations about it since. But I was just very good at lying, and as a young 20-something-year-old as well, if my mum was questioning me about things, I just got very defensive and would just leave the conversation or leave the house or whatever, so I didn't have to deal with it. But my mum isn't stupid. She knew. And it was hard. I suppose I felt like I was letting her down as well, kind of. She knew that I knew everything that she had faced in her relationship with my dad. And then there I was doing the exact same thing, kind of like history repeating itself. So I didn't want her to be disappointed in me. And even though I imagined that feeling would never, ever have come over, disappointment wouldn't have been how she was feeling. She would have been more sad and worried about me. But you get into, again, I was in my head and thinking, I can't have anyone know. And again, because he had made out to me as well that no one would believe me, which was why I never went to the police about anything. Like, they never. Still
to this day, never.
There was one time he did get arrested, but that was because we were at his friend's house and we'd been out in town and we'd had a drink. And when we got back to their house, his friends had went to bed, and then he just started kicking off at me and he was going absolutely mental. And they came downstairs because they heard a lot of commotion going on, and he had me on the floor and he was strangling me on their kitchen floor. So they got him off me and they called the police, but I was saying to them, please don't. Because again, I was scared for what the repercussions were going to be afterwards, because he made me believe always it was my fault and that I pushed him to do the things that he did because of how I was. So he got arrested. And then the police called me. So I stayed at his friend's house that night, and then they called me a few hours later and they said, like, look, what do you want to do? Do you want to press charges? And I said, no. And you know what? I think one of my biggest regrets is probably not contacting the police at any point, because something that I feel like I have to live with is, have I enabled him to continue doing the same things to someone else?
I see. Mm-hmm.
Because I never reported anything that he did. So there's no record of him doing anything. So if he is doing what he did to me to another woman and she's reported him, I feel like if I had, then the police would know he's got a history of this. But again, I was young and I didn't really understand the whole processes around it. But also, would they believe me? It was his word against mine. I mean, yes, in that situation, there was witnesses because his friends had saw him strangle me. But everything else was my word against his. He was older than me. He was a successful businessman. He was very charming. So again, I just got into my own head that people weren't going to believe the crazy psychotic 23, 24-year-old. They're going to believe the older man who comes across as being a really nice, genuine guy. Because when he met my mum even said the same. She said he's very charming and very likable, and he knows the right things to say to people to get them on side. But he had this awful side to him that no one saw.
Absolutely. That's the problem. They often are, aren't they? And say if someone in his kind of future or present moment got in touch saying, would you be a witness?
Yeah.
You know, would you recount your stories? Would you help them? Would you just steer clear?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because part of me would like to think that I would absolutely do whatever I needed to do to help another woman in that situation and get justice for herself. But then I do also think, is that just opening up old wounds for me again, and how that would make me feel? But if I was to think more about it, I think I would probably lean more towards saying yes, because then I would feel like that would be me doing my bit to help someone, because people like him need to not be on the streets to hurt people.
Yeah,
and from a selfish perspective, no, I wouldn't want to see him, and no, I wouldn't want those old wounds to be opened up again. But if it meant saving someone else from a life of abuse or trauma, then I think the right thing to do would absolutely be to help.
That's really honourable. Could totally understand if you didn't want to go there. And, you know, we've kind of made light of the fact, oh, did you leave him then? And did you leave him then? Yeah. But it's incredibly difficult to do. What do you think most people misunderstand about why it is so hard to leave?
Well, I think for me, as I said before, I class myself as being quite lucky, because we weren't living together and we had no kids. So we actually had no ties whatsoever. Whereas I feel there's a lot of people living in abusive relationships who have houses, mortgages, kids, financial ties with one another. And that makes it so much more difficult. So I think for people in that situation, it's a hell of a lot harder, because you've got so many other variables. And I mean, and there's a lot of people who have to save a lot of money in order to actually be financially able to leave their partner as well. And that's not an overnight thing. No. That's a process and a journey in itself. But I think probably the most misunderstood thing is even when you are in, well, I can only speak from personal experience, but even though I knew I was in an abusive relationship and what was happening to me was horrendous, I still loved him. And when you love someone, that pull is so strong. It overtakes absolutely everything else, because you still love that person. And don't get me wrong, my relationship with him was probably 70% horrendous, but the 30% when it was good was absolutely amazing. We had a fab time together. We had a laugh. We joked. We went to lovely places, and we had a great time. So no matter how bad it was for me, I was always still hanging on to that other 30% that was so good, and thinking, well, if I could get that to 40% and then 50%, because you want to try and make it work. Because let's face it, nobody wants to say that they've had a failed relationship.
No.
Nobody wants that, or to have to explain why it's happened. So I think that's why people will stay and try and make it work and try and help the other person as well. I mean, with him, he knew how he was treating me, because he would always cry to me afterwards about it and say, I'm sorry, this isn't me, I don't mean it. And then that gets into your head, because you then see the good in that person. They're holding their hands up and saying, yeah, I've been a dick, but I want to change. So is it right for you to then walk out on that person when they're putting their hands up and saying, I don't want to be this person anymore, I need you to help me? And deep down, I knew it was all a load of rubbish. But as an individual and as an empathetic person, I could not have just turned my back on him at that point and said, no, I'm not. And I think a lot of people think that way, but especially for men and women. And like, let's not forget, because men are also just easily as victims of domestic abuse as what women are, when they have their entire family to think about. And it's not just their immediate family, like their wife, kids, whatever. It's their parents, their brothers, their sisters, their aunties, the uncles of the family, that you then have to explain everything to. And it's so hard and difficult. It's just, I really sympathise and empathise with anyone in that situation, because I was able to just go, but there's a lot of people who can't, who can't. And that really bothers me. And I find that really heartbreaking, where people have to stay in those relationships for years and years and years.
Yeah, it's horrific. And I think shame plays a big part in that as well. For something where you shouldn't feel shameful, but you mentioned you clearly did. And it was in that French case, that horrific Pellico man, where the statement was, shame must change sides. And it really should. And I think one way we can do that, which is why I think you're incredible coming on this show and talking about it today, is to talk about it and to talk about all these. And I totally understand why people don't want to, because it's horrendous. Massive respect to you, because it must just dig up so many kind of awful memories and traumatic memories. But I think it's the only way to kind of help people understand that they don't need to feel ashamed. It's not normal, and to try and help them break free.
I think I was always really worried about someone saying to me, why are you putting up with that? Because like, I knew that myself. Like, I thought that myself. Why was I putting up with that? And you can't, when you say to someone, because I love them, because they're not in it, they can't get their head around it a lot of the time and think, well, actually love shouldn't be the reason why you're staying there. But I think I want people to know that they're not alone, and that there is help out there. And yes, it might not be an overnight fix, and it might be, there's a lot of people, as I said before, who have to plan to be able to leave and have to really think about it and hide things, which in itself can be really scary themselves, because if they're saving up money and have a wad of cash and a handbag in the bedroom and their partner finds it, that's going to cause problems. So the leaving bit in itself can be scary, but not only that, there's a lot of the time the abuse actually goes up a notch when the person does leave.
I've heard that. Yes.
Yeah. So that in itself is a really scary time for the victim. And it's heartbreaking, because you think, right, I'm finally free of this person. But then they're still in your life. As I said, I was getting followed, and he was turning up to client meetings that I was going to. And it never got physical after I'd left when he was doing that. It was just more scary, the fact that he was there and he knew where I was. But for a lot of people, that isn't the case. It does turn physical. And there's a lot of cases where someone eventually ends up being killed by their perpetrator.
It's so scary. And I remember hearing, when the government does that phone test where you get that loud beep message, and they were saying they give you warning, because if you are hiding a phone, if you're in an abusive relationship, to make sure it's somewhere where they won't hear it. That's just horrific.
Yeah.
And it really puts it in your mind, goodness me, there's people out there that have to do this. It's just so scary.
Yeah, it's horrendous.
And you work within a charity now, don't you, that helps people. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I'm a trustee for a charity called Impact Family Services based in South Shields. And And the reason I wanted to get involved and join their board is because of my personal experience and wanted to feel like I was giving something back to a cause that's close to my heart. But they're amazing. They work with women, men, families, children who are all affected in one way or another by domestic abuse. And the staff there are just incredible. When I went to their AGM last year, and they had a couple of their clients who were there who were sharing their stories. And what I've explained to you, what I went through, is tame in comparison to some of the stories that I heard on that day. Wow. And I left feeling a bit like a fraud, if I'm honest with you, thinking, I can't believe I sit and get upset over things that have happened to me when that person has literally nearly been murdered by their partner. It was horrendous. But they are such a safe space and a safe haven for people who are experiencing abuse. And that's people at all stages of their journey. So it could be people who are still living there and want to leave but don't know how to, right the way through to people who have left and still need that follow-on support. Mm-hmm. But I think for me, the most heartbreaking thing about it all is the work with the children that they do. Because there's a lot of, I suppose it's similar to my experience when I was growing up and saw and heard what I did with my mum and dad. There's a lot of kids who have to witness domestic abuse, and a lot of kids who are themselves impacted, whether they're abused themselves as well. Mm-hmm. So the staff are absolutely phenomenal in doing what they do every single day.
They sound it, and amazing that you give your time to help the charity as well. If someone's listening now experiencing abuse, what would you like them to know? So I would like them to know that it's okay to talk about it. I think for me, looking back, I wish I had spoken to someone about it. But I would want them to know that help is there. For a lot of people, abuse doesn't just stop at home, it then filters through into the workplace as well. So whether that's with threatening text messages, emails, phone calls, and it impacts, and you are at work more than you are anywhere else, it impacts on someone's ability to be able to do their job properly. So for me, if I had anyone working for me who was in that situation, I would want them to come and talk to me so I could give them the time off work during the day that they needed to seek the support that they needed, because during the day is the only time really that you can do that. They're not going to be able to do it on an evening when they're with their perpetrator. So I would urge them to find someone that they can really trust and talk to and seek help from. And I think any good employer, business would help someone do what they need to do. Because at the end of the day, if they're going to be at work and they're being threatened anyway, their head's not in the game regardless. So they might as well spend that time trying to figure out how they can actually help themselves and how they can get out and seek the support and the services that they need. But I would be happy to have a chat with anyone about that. Oh, thank you. That's amazing. And how can friends and family actually support them rather than perhaps saying, just leave them, you know, what else could they do?
I think for me, patience has to be the number one thing, because it's not an overnight. Leaving an abusive relationship isn't going to happen overnight. It's a process and it's a journey, and it can take years for some people. I mean, I was in my abusive relationship for a couple of years. But for some people, they can be in it for 7, 10, 15, 20 years. You just don't know. So I think friends and family just have to be patient and go at the speed that the person wants to go at and not pressure them. And no matter how much, as a friend or a relative, you want to scream and shout and kick off and say that person's a tosser or name call them, none of that actually helps. Because when that was happening to me, I was then actually getting angry because someone was calling my partner a name. And I felt protective of them, and I was thinking, I can say that, but you can't say that.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
It is. And again, I know everyone's different, but it's really hard. But I think it's just that patience and that understanding and just being that ear to listen to, and don't make any judgments, which can be really difficult when you love someone, but you've just got to let that person go at their own speed. But just as long as they know that you're there to help them and be there whenever you need them, then that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that sounds like really good advice. And how did you manage to heal from everything you've gone through?
It took a long time. And I mean, after that relationship with him, I then just wasn't, I'll be honest, I didn't really care about myself. I mean, I'd went through all of that trauma and I was just so broken. I just allowed myself to get treated like rubbish again by other people. Not in the same extent, but just not treated very nicely.
Yeah.
So it did take a while to heal, and I don't know how I did. I mean, I've had therapy before, but it was just a process that you've got to go on. And I'm really lucky now that I've been with my partner for 4 years, and he is absolutely amazing. And he knows everything that I've been through, and he's really supportive. And to be honest, he deserves a medal for putting up with me now, because I think I've literally went from being a doormat to now, if he so much as tries to raise his voice at me, which happens in relationships, I lose it. So I've literally went from one extreme to the other, and I do feel like now I'm a lot more protective of myself. But he's amazing, and he's really helped, and he's actually made me understand what a good relationship is and how a woman or a man, even anyone, should be treated. And it's not how I was.
No. Oh, that's lovely to hear. But it must have taken some kind of trust at first. How did you get over that? And were you kind of afraid to get into a new relationship for a while?
Yeah, I was. And it did take a while to build trust. I think when I met Simon, though, who's my partner now, I think it's kind of like when you know, you know. And when I met him, I just knew straight away that he was different, and I met him through friends of mine as well.
That's good.
So it wasn't as if he was just a random that I met. I mean, I did meet him in a pub. I met him the normal way, but I met him through friends of mine. So I suppose they had already vouched for him in that kind of way.
Yeah.
But it did take a while to build trust. But it's one of those things where it just happened gradually, and now as I said, I don't tolerate being shouted at, but I am a proper softie as well. And he has broken down those walls with me, and we have an amazing relationship.
Brilliant.
And I adore him. I'm still waiting for my ring, but
there's a hint, Simon. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for talking so openly and honestly about a really difficult subject. I really appreciate it, and hopefully it does help people.
Yes.
So now on a bit of a lighter side, we do our regular questions.
Yeah.
We've got our 10 questions, 1 to 10. Where you rate yourself 1 to 10. 1's the worst, 10 the best.
Yes.
At the following items. So how good looking are you?
Go 7.
Okay. How funny are you?
8.
How good at cooking are you?
5.
Singing?
2.
Drinking alcohol?
10.
You still like a good drink?
Oh, yes.
Brilliant. How good at parenting your fur babies are you?
10.
Brilliant. How good a friend are you?
A 9.
Oh, lovely. How intelligent are you?
Going 7.
Okay. How kind are you?
10.
Okay. And how good at sex are you?
10.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stories are at the heart of the Personal podcast, and we're so grateful for everyone who comes on and shares them. Stories are also at the heart of a strong PR campaign. And at Harvey and Hugo, we believe that everyone's story deserves a chance to be heard. That's why we're on a mission to give you a voice amplified through the power of story. Our stories are shared in the form of press releases, social media, content marketing, videography, photography, animation, graphic design, and podcasting. Our stories aren't just heard, they're shared, watched, clicked, but most importantly, they are felt. It's this stirring of emotions that cuts through the noise to light fires within people and activate them towards your purpose. So one question for you. Are you ready to share your story? Harvey and Hugo, your voice amplified.